All right. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Monetizing Your Mental Capital. I'm your host, Will Christensen. This is sponsored by Seller Labs, the affordable tool for Amazon sellers since 2013, which is basically like before dinosaurs, if you're considering Amazon, because like 2013, like it was the wild, wild west. Yeah, it's been a long journey, but it's been fun. I have Josh Hadley on the line today. Welcome, Josh.
Hey, Will, excited to be here.
Josh, the first question I like to ask all the guests is why would an Amazon seller who's in that growth mode, like I want to grow my business or I want to launch my business, some of them are in that stage, in their first year, in their 20th year, why would someone in that growth mindset, why would they want to hear from you?
Love that. Great question. So, first of all, I'm an eight-figure brand owner. So, we scaled up our business, launched in 2016, scaled to over eight figures in revenue and continuing to grow. But most importantly, I've been documenting our process of growth along the way. So, I also am the host of the Ecom Breakthrough podcast. That's Ecom with two M's.
Mm.
And in that show, what I try to deliver every week is three actionable strategies that you can implement in your business in order to scale to eight figures and beyond. So it's very e-commerce focused. Again, with my background, primarily getting my start in e-commerce on Amazon. But look, the growth in the future is becoming omni-channel. And our vision is, to grow to $100 million brand. So it's kind of like join me on that journey and see like what are the strategies and tactics that we're implementing and learning along the way.
I love it. I love it. I totally think documenting SOPs is such an interesting topic, and it's one that feels fairly mundane, and I've discovered the more I dig into it, the more I realize the reason you don't document that process is because you don't understand this is going to bite you in the rear for a long time until you document it. Like it's just, I think it's something that comes with experience, and a lot of times those processes that need to be documented are the ones that are being handled by lower level people who haven't learned that lesson yet. Which gets all sorts of interesting and tricky. So I could not agree more. Documenting those processes is powerful and important.
Love that.
All right. So jumping in here, when was the first time you can remember monetizing your mental capital?
Yeah,
Think
so
think like
yeah.
way back. Like we're going like elementary school. Like some people were like, "Oh, I sold drugs in high school." I mean, all sorts of different things. When's your first entrepreneurial venture that you can think of?
Yeah, so I was the kid with the corner on the corner of the street with the candy stand growing up.
The
So
candy stand.
very young age, selling lemonade, selling snow cones during the winter. It was hot chocolate and Christmas ornaments, like you name it, and I
Hot
probably
chocolate and
tried to
Christmas
sell it.
ornaments in the winter. Man, how old were you?
I was like between the ages of like 6 going up to 12. That's what I did a lot
Six
of.
to 12. I owned the candy stand on the corner. Any interesting stories that came from that you look back on now and you're like, oh, I learned that business lesson from the 8-year old down the street that tried to steal all my.
Yeah, for me, I mean, it was always like just business came intuitively for me. So n neither of my parents are entrepreneurs, but like I could easily see like, oh, you go to the store and I'll go buy this candy for 25 cents, but I'm gonna go sell it for 50 cents, 75 cents or whatever. And so it was very like I could quickly grasp numbers and understanding like this is how you make a profit in a business. And so, that then parlayed into, when I got into college, I still didn't really know what I really wanted to do. My parents were always like, "Hey, you're an entrepreneur." I was like, "I don't even know what that means." But I went to school and I ended up doing my undergrad in finance, which provided me a much better background in finances, being able to read profit and loss statements and, taking that into my business now. I mean, that's why we've been able to scale and grow rapidly without taking any
Mm,
outside capital or digging into lines of credit or taking out loans from Amazon or from anybody. Like we've been able to bootstrap this all along the way.
I love it. I love it. And as you've been bootstrapping and and connecting those different dots, I'm sure you've learned some pretty valuable lessons. So from college to here, anything else that you'd want to share with with the group on how you got, I mean, eight-figure seller is nothing to scoff at. And especially in a world where it sort of feels like Bezos and the team don't want you to be an eight-figure seller. Like there's some things that like if they really wanted me to be able to do this, they'd make it a little easier. So even in that world, anything else that you'd want to share with the group around, how you got where you are?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is like as soon as I graduated from college, I got a job offer with American Airlines. I was in their MBA rotational leadership program. And it was like
Mm.
1 month into my job. And I was like, yeah, I'm not meant for this corporate gig. Like I knew it. I could see how inefficient, how lazy people seem to behave at work. Like in all reality, out of an 8 hour day, like maybe people are working an actual like 30 minutes to an hour a day. And there's just so much wasted time and energy.
Oh
And
my gosh. Yeah.
yeah. So for myself, like I knew I wanted to like be able to do more and also like not be capped on my potential or play the game of politics of only being able to rise up the ranks if I'm, rubbing the right people's backs and, kissing up to people. And so I was always the guy listening to podcasts. Always listening to podcasts, always trying to find that next thing. And, I was always trying to like think of like, well, what could I do or what business could I start that would actually be like profitable? So my wife and I actually started by doing custom wedding invitations. She was a graphic designer. And so, she started designing some friends' wedding invitations. And as
Okay.
soon as we did
Okay.
that, and friends were like, this is amazing. I need to refer you to this friend. I was like, okay, there's something here. And so that's what kind of kicked things
What
off.
year
Like,
was that?
this is 2014.
2014. Okay, that's fascinating. And were you doing like the 5x7 front and back, like full color invitations?
Yeah, so everything was like custom designed. So the brides would come to my wife and be like, hey, this is my vision. And then she'd basically make it come to life.
Got it.
And we had a printing manufacturer that would print everything. And so
Did you
that's,
use, do you remember what was the name of that printing manufacturer? Do you remember?
I can't even remember. No.
Interesting. The reason I ask, I actually used to be a wedding photographer. Like in college, that's one of my entrepreneurial ventures. I went
Hmm.
and bought a camera. I borrowed a camera first. And I took a couple of them. I took them for free, and they were like, we're gonna pay you. Like they felt guilty because of how much value I had provided. And that was like, oh, I should be charging more for this. And so, got my prices going. And then I was designing some invitations as well. And even in 2014, if I go back and look at my stuff, I'm sure I designed a few wedding invitations back then around that. So that's fascinating. So you found like, okay, there is a niche here to fill. How'd you scale that?
Yeah, so what I was doing, so I didn't leave American Airlines. So this whole time I end up working at American Airlines for 5 years. So what am I doing in between now and then? So
Oh,
like I said, my wife she was doing this graphic design stuff. I was like, hey, I think we can do more of this. And so I created like a sales funnel on Facebook, started running Facebook ads. It was like shooting fish in a barrel back in the day. And I had a lead form. And while I was at work, whenever there was like a break during the day or whenever I was at lunch, like I just had like sales scripts that I was following that I created that I would just send to every like bride that was like asking for a quote. And I was imitating as my wife and being like, hey, yeah, I love your wedding style, blah, blah,
oh,
blah.
that's interesting. So you were impersonating her in the discussions, which from a standpoint of like connection, I bet they felt a lot more connected because it wasn't some dude they were talking to.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I did that, and then I would get people to like put a 50% deposit down for their invitations, and then we would put them on our calendar. But it got to a point over 18 months where there was a 6 month waiting period just to be able to work with my wife. And I was like, all right, this business is not going to be scalable in the future. We had just had our first son as well. And so I was like, my wife's working day and night at this point. I can't put any more clients on her calendar. Like there's
Yeah.
literally no extra time in the day. So like we're capped and we were doing over six figures in revenue already. And I was like, that's great. And it could, it was already surpassing the salary that we had at American Airlines. That was great. But like I had a vision for more. And I was like, I want $1 million business, right? Like, how do we do more? And so again, I've always been consuming these podcasts. And so stumbled on a podcast, it was talking about, the success on Amazon. And then there was a bunch of these courses going around. And I don't even remember the name of the course that I ended up buying, but I bought one. It wasn't the infamous ASM course, but it was somebody else selling a course. And I went through it, and the light bulb went off for me that, hey, what if we could take, what my wife is doing and maybe try to do that on Amazon? Can we print a type of, it was recipe cards at the time that brides would come back to us
Mm.
asking for their bridal showers. And I was like, let's see if there's a market for these old school recipe cards. We put them on Amazon, 200 units, and we sold out of them super quick. And I was like, okay, this is a lot more exciting. So
Well,
we
right,
ended
because at
up,
that point it's not tied to her time.
mhm.
We talk about monetizing mental capital, and this is one of the key pieces. The moment you begin to find a way to make money that isn't directly dependent on your time, you unlock something. And I found that when an entrepreneur begins their journey, a lot of times that's what they're selling, time. And then over time, they begin to recognize, wait a second, I can sell a lot more of this if I begin to understand the value I'm creating and somehow decouple it from my time.
Yep, 100%. And so I knew that very early on, right? It's like, all right, how do we scale this business? We can either go try to replicate my wife and hiring more graphic designers, much easier said than done,
Yeah.
or pursue this path of like create something once, sell it to infinity. And so that's what we started doing. So as soon as we sold out of those, we doubled down. We said, all right, screw the wedding invitation business. Let's go all in on this Amazon thing. So that was the fall of 2016 when we first got our start on Amazon. We doubled down in 2017. We did our first million on Amazon in 2017 and then kind of just kept scaling from there on
Mm,
after.
mm. All right, I love it. Let's imagine that we've entered that coffee shop that I mentioned before we started recording. And in this coffee shop, you're sitting with a guy who happens to be an old high school friend. So there's a lot of camaraderie here. You're not going to hold back. You're going to share as much as you can with him about where this is going. And I actually think you probably have a few of the people sitting on the edge of their seats because this is someone who has been sharing three of these nuggets every week for a long time, I would guess. So I'll be very curious to see what you decide to pick out and share with the group. But as he tells you about, hey, I'm having some moderate levels of success, and man, it's been really cool. And you get that desire to be like, okay, you totally were my wingman in high school, and like, I'm gonna help you out. What are
Yeah.
the things that you would tell him? And there's a couple of different areas. Which of the following product launches, reviews, product listings, advertising, preparing for scaling, or selling and exiting? Which of those would you say is the place where you could help maybe the most? Which two areas?
So I think I'm going to touch on all of that, but I'm going to be more strategic with all of this. So in
Okay.
true form to fashion with my own podcast, right? I've got three actionable strategies that I wish I would have known once I crossed my first $1 million on Amazon.
Mm,
Mistakes that I made to hopefully help the same people that are experiencing success on Amazon not repeat the hundreds of thousands of dollars of mistakes that I made along the way. So, number one is understanding that the true growth in your business is going to revolve around and will always revolve around product launches. So, for any e commerce business, right, or any product based business, okay, think of Apple as well as a product based business.
okay.
You wonder why they come out with a new edition of their iPhone or of the tablet, of the iPad, or of the computer every single year, even if there are only modest updates to it, right?
Those modest updates drive me insane. I'm on a Z Fold 5, like the fold phone,
Hmm.
which they're freaking cool. They do have a few idiosyncrasies with the screen that I don't love. But the Z Fold 6 came out and it was like, this is the same dang phone, guys.
Yeah. So ultimately, the purpose is this, right? If Apple is always launching new products, if you, as an Amazon entrepreneur and e-commerce business owner, your number one priority is and always should be, what is my next product that I'm launching? One of the biggest leading indicators for your success in the future, as I talk to entrepreneurs, will come to me and ask me for advice and opinions. And I will know the people that are going to be successful 2, 3 years from now versus the people that are not. And here's the difference: the people that already have a list, a pipeline of products that have already been vetted, that they're like, oh, this is the product I'm launching next, then this, then this, then this, then this, and they have a reason as to why they are launching those. If they can articulately explain that to me, that is a leading indicator of where of hitting $3 million in the next 18 months, right? If you've crossed seven figures. And so it all that is the leading indicator. How many times a day are you finding new product opportunities, right? And I'll tell everybody this as we're recording the top of 2025 here. We have product launches that are planned all the way through 2026 at this point in
Holy
time,
crap.
right? So, and you think about Apple too, right? From what I've heard, I don't know anybody personally at Apple, but they already know what products they're launching 5 years from now. Rumor has it, even 10 years from now, they have a pretty good idea of what products they're launching, right? And so entrepreneurs, small business owners need to pull that back in to the way you operate your own business. The good news is because you're not a large organization, you should be a lot more nimble. And so that's why I say one of our core KPIs, one of my team members, they have to find 20 new product ideas every single week, right? Now, I'm not launching 20 new products every single week, but they have to find 20 new ideas because guess what? From those 20 ideas, is there maybe one of them that maybe passes the sniff test? Yeah, maybe. But look, if I'm doing volume in terms of finding product opportunities, and then all I have to do is prioritize which opportunities are going to give me the fastest RO, the highest ROI, and in the fastest and shortest amount of time. And that's the secret hack that I would say, which will bleed into really hack number two, which is going to be like the way that you're able to bootstrap this is by focusing on products that have an extremely high ROI, aka profit margin for
So
your
so
business.
hold on. I want to talk about number two, but I want to talk about number
Yep.
one. I got some things to say about number one. So you're saying that in the past, based on your experience with other sellers, based on your experience, the leading indicator is the number of new product opportunities found in a given week.
100%. That
And
is the leading
and
indicator.
you've set that as the standard. So your team and how many people are doing 20 ideas a week right now for you?
We have so we have two people in our R&D department, and that's what, so one's focused on like the ROI and kind of the financial
And the other
analysis,
one's just doing 20 product ideas a
finding
week.
new
Your
ideas.
whole job is to go, honestly sounds like a fun job. I like coming up with new crap.
Yeah.
If you've ever read Six Working Geniuses by Patrick Lencioni, if you haven't read that yet, Josh, I highly recommend taking a peek at it.
Yeah,
Um,
he's got some great books.
oh my gosh, just a freaking genius of a dude. That book talks about these six working geniuses, and the second working genius is what he calls invention, and the first working genius is what he calls wonder. And so, wonder is the guy who dreams up a problem. Invention is the guy who says, I got a way to solve that and comes up with all those different ideas. So, you kind of have somebody who has to love both of those things in order to really enjoy the job that you're
Mm.
describing for what's there. And I think what's fascinating is you found a leading indicator. So I want to talk about leading and lagging indicators. What's the difference between a leading and a indicator, and why are we focusing on a leading indicator instead of a lag indicator?
Yeah, so the best analogy is this, right? So when I step on a scale, right, and I see my weight, That is a lagging indicator, right? That's a lagging metric. Okay. So what would be a leading
I
metric
ate that Big Mac and now I
to
weigh.
Yeah, so the leading metric is going to be like the number of calories that you consume per day, right? That is your leading metric. And then guess what? Over the course of 30 days, however many calories you've been consuming per day is going to add up to, your weight. It is going to be a leading indicator of how much you're going to weigh 30 days from now. So likewise, let's translate that to business now. Your profit and loss statement that you are looking at right now, that profit that you look at is a lagging metric of the work that was primarily done 12 months ago.
Yep.
Okay. So that means like that's why I say like we're already planning into 2026. It's already done. Like we're already living here in the future. Now it's time to look at 2027 because I know like I already know the scale of our business and the growth of our business over the next 2 years because I've already like planned it out and it's already there on paper and I've got the leading measures that are leading me to those metrics, right? A lot
Mm.
of people think they like business is just like, oh, I stumbled upon this. I wonder what my profit will be next year. What's Amazon going to do with their fees? And it's like, I don't care. Like, yes, like ideally, I don't want their FBA fees to go up. But you know what? Like, I don't care. I actually like when their fees go up because guess what that does?
It
Everybody else
eliminates the other
whines.
people.
They all whine. They all complain. They all say, Amazon's not for me. This is too hard. And I say, when it gets hard, I say, good. And the reason why that's good is because all the weak, soft people are going to start dropping out. And everybody's all up in arms right now about Amazon. They don't like the way the reimbursements are going to be changing. And it's like, guys, like this is the evolution of business, right? This is how retail originally started, right? They give everything to the brands to just get stuff into their stores. And then it's like as those stores begin to like monetize everything, such as Walmart and Target, it's like now they can throw their weight around. And that's where Amazon is at.
Yeah, they have the audience now. They used you to get the
Yeah.
audience. And now you've got to understand that this is the game you're playing. Interesting.
And how
So
do you use, and then how do you flip the script and then say, all right, so Amazon now becomes a pawn on my chessboard.
wait a
And
second.
that's where I think that that's where the mental shift needs to change for a lot of e-commerce entrepreneurs. They consider themselves like, oh, I'm only an Amazon business. So Amazon is like my, uh,
My parent or something.
not even that. It is a very manipulative relationship. I'm in an
An
abusive
angry girlfriend,
relationship.
a toxic
Yes.
girlfriend.
Right. And that's the way they see it. And it's like, no, you need to see this as like you're playing chess. Amazon needs to become a pawn on your chessboard. So, how are you using Amazon to springboard you to your
to
future?
I love that. Was that a second hack? I think that might be like another hack, right?
It could be a second hack. Yeah, we'll
That right there
add that
sounds like
one.
a hack.
It's a bonus. That's a
Well,
bonus on top of the
a
three.
bonus hack. So the idea, man, so many cool things about that from a standpoint of perspective. I hear sellers complain about Amazon constantly. Like that's like their favorite thing to do is complain about Amazon together. Like I've
Yep.
honestly wondered, like, I bet I could make money just doing support groups where all we do is complain about Amazon for an hour once a week. And people would pay for that to go. Honestly, I think that what you've said is even better. And that would be coaching people around recognizing like, nah, they are a pawn on your chessboard, not the other way around. And they are playing against you. There is another, the market is playing against you. There is another team out there. So they're gonna see you as a pawn. But if you don't see them as a pawn, you just get stuck in that self-limiting behavior.
100%. So here's another really important like mental shift that I teach to my team all the time. If we can't do anything to affect that the change of whatever, is going on, then don't talk about it. Don't talk about it and live with that reality and move on. Because too many people, it's like, yeah, you're going to see a lot of people will go to these Facebook forums and whatever, and then they're just going to complain
Lots of
about the
energy.
Amazon stuff. And it's like, well, you just wasted That I actually love it when I see that because I see my competition wasting
Wasting
their
time.
time and energy focused on all the wrong things. Because look, if you can't influence the outcome, then leave it alone, right? Right now, as we're recording this, like TikTok shop, is it going to be around in the next
Who
20 days?
knows?
Who knows? But guess what? Completely out of my control. I am not going to be able to influence that decision one way or not. And
Hmm.
so to my team, it's like we don't talk about it. We keep operating as business as usual. And guess what? When we do get an announcement either way, then we'll make whatever course correction we need to. And so too many people live on this like they love news, right? And they love to react to the news. And so a good mental shift is like if you can't influence the outcome, don't even
Ignore
talk
it.
about it.
Walk
It's not
away.
worth your time.
I think that's fascinating because I think that right there, you could pull that hack into any part of your life. If I
Hmm.
can't influence it, I should accept the reality and continue forward. If this is something that isn't influenceable, why are you spending so much time talking about it, thinking about it? Any energy you spend there, money, time, all of the above, is a waste because you literally have no ability to impact it. Now, I think there are times where we think we don't have an ability to impact in our personal lives, especially when we actually do with the help of therapy or all of those other
Yep.
places. But man, yeah, don't. And I think that goes ties up the lead lag indicator discussion nicely. A leading indicator that you should be focusing on is one that actually influences your lag measure, or you believe it will influence your lag measure. And that lag measure, here's the scary part, you actually don't have any control over it. What you
Yep.
do have a control over is your leading indicator. So that profit that you've been focusing so much on, you don't control it. Let it go. Let it go. And then focus on that leading indicator, which you do have control over.
Yeah, exactly. And that bleeds perfectly into, my tip number two, which is focusing on highest ROI and time and the quickest time to recoup that investment. As you look at your product pipeline, those are your two metrics that you have to be focused on. Which
Mm,
of these products am I going to have the greatest profit margin on? Okay. And
mm,
on top of that, which one of these, like let's take a scenario here. If I have to go source a product, okay, and I am outlaying $100,000, or let's boil this down. Let's make it easy. $10,000, I'm outlaying $10,000 in cash for 10,000 units of something,
mm,
okay? And the reason it has to be 10,000 units is because that's the MOQ from this manufacturer to get this at a reasonable cost. All right. So if that's the case, how long until you can break even on that investment? So if you cannot sell, like if you're like, hey, if I order 10,000 units, that's going to be 18 months worth of inventory, or heaven forbid it's even longer than that. But let's say that that's the way you're approaching this. You're like, well, I don't know if this is a good test. If it does really well, then it's 6 months worth of inventory. But if it does average, I'm looking at 18 months of inventory. If it does poor, I'm looking at 3 or 4 years worth of inventory. That is where so
mm.
many people go wrong is they look at this opportunity and it's like, oh, but I'm buying this for $1. People are selling it for 25 on Amazon. Look at this profit margin. Okay, that's true. Great profit margin.
But how
But
long is it going to take you to get back that
yes,
initial investment?
yes, exactly. And then on the flip
Ooh,
side, right? Like maybe there's a product I can source for $1, but people are selling it for $10 on Amazon instead. You're like,
not
profit
as
margin's
good.
not as good. However, if I invest in 10,000 units again, that 10,000 units will only last me 2 months.
It'll pay
Okay.
off in 2 months. And so
Perfect. Yep.
this is fascinating. So a good friend of mine, his name's Tyler Jeffcoat,
Mm-hmm.
and Tyler owned, I can say this now, it's public. He owned Seller Accountant. It was recently purchased by another agency, and Tyler's still there doing transition stuff, and he's working on new things. He was the one who introduced me to the idea of return on working capital.
Yep.
And I think what you just described is a mental shift way of making sure that the thing you are buying comes back into your bank account as quickly as humanly possible, thus refilling your working capital so that you can go buy something else.
Yep.
How do you predict how well it's going to sell?
So that obviously comes with experience, right? We have financial models that we can build in because we know what our average success rate is. But when you're just starting out, right? You're still just throwing crap at the wall and seeing what sticks,
Spaghetti.
right?
Yep.
And that's okay. That's okay. But focus on those that you know you can get a return on your capital a lot quicker, right? A riskier bet is, hey, I have to order so much inventory that's going to be 18 months. And if I do it, if it's wrong, then I've got 5 years worth of inventory. That will kill you and your business faster than taking a bunch of small bets that you're like, this, I'm not going to be selling 10,000 units a month with this product. But guess what? I only need to invest $1,000 into it. It's $1 per unit. I only have to pay for 1,000 units up front, but I can return that in a month, 2 months. All you do is you rinse and repeat, especially if you're bootstrapping this thing. That's the fastest way to scale up. Honestly, it's so the difference of those that struggle financially in the e-commerce world is going to come down to the following thing. What is your cash conversion cycle? Okay. Which basically means when does that money leave your bank account and when do you get that original invested capital back out? All right. So here's how you influence this, right? So this is still part of tip number two that I would say you've got to focus as much as you possibly can working with manufacturers that are willing to give you favorable payment terms. Okay. And I'll say this, we have payment terms with some of our suppliers that are over net 100
Mm,
days. Okay. That means I place the order. That order is here in the US. In fact, it's even in Amazon FBA centers, and I'm selling it before I have even paid for that inventory. So I am selling the inventory. Then guess what the other magical hack is? Can you work with your manufacturers to create a relationship with them that allows you to pay by credit card without any fees? Because now guess what? If you take the Amex Plum card, okay, one of Amex's credit card offerings,
okay.
there's a way I can get an extra 90 days interest-free payment on this. Okay, here's how. So take the Amex Plum card, okay? And if you can work with your manufacturer to say like, "Hey, I want to be able to pay you via credit card." Let's say you're working with somebody overseas and they're like, "Well, no, it still needs to be a bank wire transfer." Here's
Yeah.
how you do this.
Yeah.
You say, "Okay, here's how I make this happen. I'll still send you a bank wire transfer. You just don't know that it's a bank wire transfer." We use a platform called Melio, okay? Melio, okay? And what we do is we'll use our credit card to pay that invoice. Melio is going to charge you 2.9%, okay, to use your credit card to pay for that inventory. Now, I'm still not finished yet because I told you like we're going to do this at 0% interest. I see that 2.9% as a cost of capital. So what do I do to my supplier? I say, "Well, hey, shoot. I guess in order for me to pay you via credit card without incurring any fees, like I'm going to need a 2.9% discount on my invoice." And guess what? If you work with them, they will do that. And so now I'm able to take, all right, here's my original invoice. I've got a 2.9% discount. I'm going to pay you through Melio. There's other platforms as well. I'm going to use my Amex Plum card. And here's the magic of how you get to 90 days. Amex Plum card has a 60-day like payback window, interest free. Okay. That's their like normal credit cards are like 30 days on average, right? 25, 30 days. And then your bill is due. Okay. They extend it for free to 60 days on the Amex Plum card, but I told you 90. So how does that work? It all comes down to if you can open up multiple credit cards, guess what you do? Let's
Just
say you have
transfer the
four different
balance.
Well, not even that. If you have four different Amex Plum credit cards, okay, open them up. Whatever week I am in, right? So as we record this, it's January 9th. If my statement start date for a brand new statement period is January 8th,
Oh
and I
no
charge the credit card on
way.
January 9th, guess what?
You
My
got a
credit
30
statement
days. So
doesn't
you have
close for
five of
another
those
30
and you
days.
only do it in the week
Yep.
that gives you that state, and you stagger those statement end dates so that you get
Now I've
the
got 90 days.
holy
90 days
crap.
of capital, right? And so that's why we have multiple credit cards. We never carry a balance on any of them. We just pay them off. And then you want to know the other hack? You do that exact same process with your Amazon ads. Okay. And with your Amazon ads, here's how you control this, right? You have to reach out to their support on the ads platform. You can get them to only bill you after it hits $10,000 in ad spend, right? So instead of charging you every $500 of ad spend, they can change it. And I think it comes with like time and history and your account and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But we've got $10,000. So now I can accurately go in and be like, all right, we're gonna get this charge on this day, this charge on this day, and then my accountant, my accounting controller, she has every single credit card start date, and then all we do is we just like, oh, today start with this card. Oh, tomorrow start with this card because now I'm using I'm using the very beginning start date of every credit card, and then I don't touch it after the first week is
So not only are
yeah.
you getting 90 days from your plum strategy, which by the
Yep.
way, that's freaking brilliant. Like I'm now thinking like, wait, how could I use this in, because I run an entrepreneur's apprentice staffing business where I clone entrepreneurs, right? Like my whole job is helping these people connect all of these different dots. And I'm thinking, wait a second, there might be an opportunity here for me to extend my working capital and connect those different dots to see where all of that goes. But on top of the 90 days you got with the plum thing, you also have manufacturers who are saying, no problem. I'll give you terms as well, right? Are you able to
Yeah,
stack those?
100%. Yeah, yeah. So I'm getting net 100 plus day terms with our overseas manufacturers.
And then at
Then
the
on top
100th
of
day,
that,
you do the Melio.
yeah. So
Oh
now
my
I'm not like
gosh.
190 days plus, right? So
6 months.
that is how you scale a business. That's how you scale an e-commerce business by having it's called negative working capital, which means I make money on the money that I haven't even spent yet. Does that make sense? So like you
Yes.
haven't even invested that money yet, but you're already making money on it. That's called negative working capital.
And
That's how you
all you've done is,
successfully bootstrap an
okay,
e-com business
this
without
is
lines of credit and loans that are only going to catch you like you're playing with fire. Any e-commerce business owner that crosses seven figures that feels like they need to open up a line of credit in order to continue to grow your
playing with
business,
fire.
you're playing with fire, and I promise you it's going to come and bite you in the butt. If that's you, then I would say go back and figure out new products that have a higher ROI and a shorter cash conversion cycle for you.
That Yeah, you've got me thinking in like seven different ways for things that could be done with that. That's amazing. The 6 months, like if I walked up to a friend, and I've got lots of Amazon seller friends. If I walked up to one of them, I was like, hey, guess what? I can get you terms on this product, and you don't have to pay for it for 6 months. Want to try it? Every one of them is gonna be like, "What?
Yeah.
I'm totally in." Like that sounds. You mean I can put it up on Amazon? Like I can put in the order today, and then I don't have to pay for it for. Yeah, like I'm in. Where do we go? Like, man, that is just epic right there. Okay,
So
so
that's that. You
was
ready
that
for
the
the
second hack?
That's the second hack.
Holy
That's the
crap!
second hack. You
Tell me
ready
the
for
third
number
one.
three? All right.
Yeah.
Number three is this. This is probably the biggest mistake that I have made in the business as soon as we cross seven figures. You are going to hear time and time again people say, "Oh, you got to start diversifying yourself off of Amazon. Get off of Amazon. You never know when you're going to wake up and your account is suspended." Okay? Now, That's very well true. It is. That's the nature of business. Don't think that you running to go to let's say you build your let's say you build a Shopify storefront, okay?
Hmm.
And you think that, oh, I'm just going to do like let's say you're not even doing Amazon. Let's say your business is I'm a Shopify e-commerce business owner. Guess whose world you're playing in at this point because you need traffic to your store. And guess what? Most of these Shopify store owners, they get all of their traffic from one platform and it's called Meta, right? They're running Facebook ads, they're running Instagram ads. So now, guess where all of your risk sits? Because I have
Meta.
friends in this space.
With
What
Meta.
happens when your ad account gets deactivated by Facebook and Facebook doesn't care about you? You think that Amazon's bad? I think Facebook's even worse. Like you're just, they don't even care.
Yeah, they
Like you
don't.
can't even
There's
get
no.
anybody on the phone.
Yeah, there's nobody on the phone. There's no.
There's
I've had
nothing,
a Facebook ad account suspended, and it was that somebody knew somebody at Facebook, and that was how it got unsuspended. But it was like freakishly difficult to get it unsuspended.
right? So here's the thing. I even think like Amazon, like as long as you're not being stupid and using black hat tactics, look, like it's going to be so rare to be caught in the crosshairs of being an ethical seller that randomly got misaligned and got suspended for doing something they weren't actually doing, right? Like super rare. Okay. But at least there's people you can actually contact and have conversations with and get a little bit of progress there. The other analogy I use, so let's say you still love e-commerce and you're like, ah, screw Amazon. I don't like having all my eggs in their basket. They control my business. Like I said, you go to Facebook, guess who controls your business there? Mark Zuckerberg. Okay. You go over to Google. Let's say you're like, ah, I still love e-commerce. I'm going to do the blog strategy. It's all about SEO, baby. Right. And I'm going to get organic traffic to my website from all these blog posts. Well, guess whose world you're playing in now? Google's world. And as soon as they do an algorithm shift, which they do at like every year, it seems like at this point, right now, a lot of those business owners that were relying on blog traffic, they're toast because now Google's prioritized Reddit threads and forums of all freaking things. And that's who's getting all the traffic, right? And so, look, wherever you build your business, it is
There's
so
gonna be
rare.
risks.
You're in somebody's backyard. 100%, right? Especially if you're in the digital marketing space, like you're in somebody's backyard and you're leveraging these big technology platforms in order to find success. So
Yeah.
here's my recommendation. And basically the gist is this because I spent as soon as we crossed $1 million, I was like, oh, I need to go start diversifying. And I started to go try to build a Shopify site. We started our own blog. And guess what? I lost over 300, $400,000 trying to do those things and trying to get Shopify off the ground. And guess what? It did a whole lot of nothing. If instead I would have just kept pouring gasoline on the Amazon fire, I would have scaled and I think we would be 3 times as big as we are now. But I
Oh,
got myself distracted by listening to everybody else say, like, oh, you got to get diversified, diversify, diversify. Here's my rule of thumb that I live by now. Until you're making $1 million in revenue on a single platform or sales channel, don't worry about anything else. Keep pouring more gasoline on that fire. That means you've got to be passing an 8-figure business before you even consider saying, all right, what does the next sales channel look
so
like
did
for
you
me?
diversify? I mean, you're bigger than that now. How?
So
What?
yeah, last year is our first year that we really started focusing on diversifying our sales channel. So we went all in on TikTok Shop, and then we're parlaying that in with Shopify, and we're seeing some
So
fantastic results there.
okay. So the question that I have then with regard to that strategy is, you said if once you get to $1 million,
In
um,
monthly revenue.
monthly revenue, $1 million. Once you hit that, so you're waiting until you're like a $12 million per year Amazon company before you should even touch the others.
That's my perspective. Because I think it's so much easier to keep doing more of what you're an expert in and you already know. Because look, the older I get in business and the more experience that I get in business, I realize how few opportunities I'm going to have to really knock it out of the park in life. Because the amount of time and specialty and experience and knowledge that it takes to become a
An expert.
Amazon expert Amazon seller
Hmm.
or an expert TikTok seller or an expert Shopify store
Hmm.
owner is massive, right?
Yep.
I've spent 8 years on the Amazon platform and I still feel like there's things I could do better on, right? And so,
Love it.
look, if you just
Josh,
are constantly bouncing around, you're just going to run yourself in circles. So
I
that's
love
my
it.
last advice.
Okay, last advice there. Final question for you. How can individuals from the podcast who have been listening to this that have questions that want to get in touch, what's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, best way is to follow my podcast, Ecom Breakthrough. It's two M's, Ecom, and then Breakthrough. It's on all the platforms, and then I've got my contact info that I share within that podcast. So
I
that's
love it.
really where, like, if people want to learn like the cutting edge things, like this is what I'm focused on. These are the questions I have in the e-commerce business. That's the best place to get my insights.
Okay, final question. What one book would you recommend to individuals that you've come across over the last couple of years?
Yep, The One Thing by Gary Keller.
The one thing. I love it. That one's come up before, and I couldn't agree more. So important to dig in and focus. Josh, this has been a fantastic episode. You blew me out of the water. Many different things there that I'm pretty excited to go look into myself. So appreciate your
Awesome. It
time
was a
today.
pleasure being here, Will.
All right. That's it for this episode of Monetizing Your Mental Capital.